Okay, I'm going to call this meeting in order, please. This is the December 17th, 2025 Knoxville Regional Transportation Planning Organization Executive Board meeting. Our first order of business is to call roll and determine if we have a quorum today.
Good morning. I'll call the elected or appointed official's name, and if you're serving as a proxy, if you'll reply with your name, please. Mayor Tanya Martin. You'll just turn that off. Turn that off. Thank you. Mayor Tony Akins. Mayor Roland Bradshaw.
Billy Pickle for Roland Bradshaw.
Mayor Scott Burton. Troy Ebert.
Troy Ebert for Governor Billy.
Mayor Terry Frank.
Catherine Baldwin for Mayor Frank.
Mayor Warren Gooch. Mayor Jeff Harris.
Here.
Mayor Glenn Jacobs.
Here.
Mayor India Kincannon.
Here.
Vice Mayor Tommy Smith.
Andrew Roberto here for Vice Mayor Smith.
Mayor Ed Mitchell.
Don Walker here for Mayor Mitchell.
Commissioner Gina Oster. Commissioner Harold Pittner. Trustee Justin Biggs. Mr. Isaac Thorne.
Here.
Mayor Larry Waters.
James Tembo for Mayor Waters.
Mayor Andy White.
Ryan Boone for Mayor Andy White.
Mayor Ron Williams.
Here.
That's 12 present, sir. That's a quorum.
Thank you. I think we hit all the participants correct. Does anybody else need to introduce themselves? I think so. All right. Do we have anyone that will be participating on Zoom today?
Not so far.
Okay, thank you. Doug, are there any amendments to the agenda?
No, not today.
Okay. All right, so next is the approval of the minutes from the October 22nd, 2025 Executive Board meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, corrections, amendments to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Sorry. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thanks. Next up, Doug, this is you. This is the FY 26-27 Transportation Planning Work Program Amendment. This is for the Knoxville Greenway Connectivity Study.
Yes, thank you. If you will remember, we passed a brand-new work program that started October 1st. And in that program, we have a bucket of planning funds, about $575,000, that can be used for requests by all of our jurisdictions if a planning study need comes up. So Knox County made a request for $100,000, and this is to study. There is a goal to develop a greenway all the way from downtown Knoxville out by the Alcoa Highway corridor up to the Smoky Mountains, and there's a missing section there. It's along where like Lake Crossing Lane and Maloney Road is, that little gap. Another road would be Ginn Road. I don't know if you're real familiar with that, but there's about a mile missing there. It's not a great map, but you can kind of see that there's a missing link there. And we're not real sure why it didn't get included in the TDOT plans. I know the right-of-way through there is really tight, but Knox County wants to study that and see if we can figure out a way to bridge that. So the study would be to evaluate the missing connections along that section, and also to assess how, if we built a greenway in that area, how it could connect to the neighborhood, schools, and parks in that area. And it would come up with a preferred option. And like I said, it would be a shame if we can't complete this whole link up that corridor. So I think it's a really important study. Go to the next slide. Like I said, the funding request would be $80,000 of our federal money, $5,000 of the TDOT match, and then Knox County would put in $15,000 match, so that's $100,000. And we have this bucket of $576,000, so that would take us down to $476,000. So there's still additional money there. If any of the other, if you guys come up with a planning study, there's still money there that we can fund other studies. That's all I had on this. Like I said, I think it would be a great use of our money, and we need to figure out how to bridge that missing link. So I'll take any questions. Some of my other staff here are familiar with the project. They can answer questions if you have any. The Tech Committee did recommend approval.
So I have a question, actually, Doug. Going forward, do you anticipate, you have $476,000 in that bucket. Is there anything else currently in the pipeline that would require funding?
Not that anyone's come forward with, and this is a 2-year work program, so that money we have two years to utilize it. And from time to time, we do have leftover money, and it typically will get carried over. But if anyone else does come up with the project, we're willing to entertain it.
Thank you. Any other questions? Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. On to the transportation update from the state of Tennessee. Senator Massey, thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you for inviting me. I enjoy coming when I'm in town on these days. So basically, I know these are up on the board is the cost increases that were requested by the Commissioner of TDOT in the, request to the governor. We'll know, early February, what of those got included in the budget. But, so that first part, the $75 million maintenance, that tackles statewide maintenance deficit from drainage upgrades to our favorite thing, potholes repairs, to city maintenance agreements and more. So that's what that kind of covers. The $75 million for critical bridge investment, that accelerates the state and local bridge replacements amid aging conditions and rising cost. The highway program, which is for new construction program support, the $100 million, and that is recurring also. It's a third. That's a third of the 10-year plan projects top $100 million, and so it's really challenging trying to meet those needs. But recurring funds keep major rural and urban highway investments moving. So trying to get all those, as many to contract as we can. The rest area, the 250, that's a one-time, non-recurring rest area and welcome center modernization. If you drive our roads, some of our rest areas are pretty dated. So this would help renovate and help replace facilities to enhance safety, experience, and efficiency. I think some of you probably went to the public meeting recently that they had on the I-40 75 corridor. And I had former Representative Jimmy Matlock call me and says, Becky, why are y'all doing a public meeting? Because we've talked about this for years. We know what needs to be done. I said, well, that little NEPA process, I said, they're required. That was the first one for public input in the after the first of the year, and I forget the exact time that it will happen. I don't know, Amanda, do you know? In the spring, there will be a second round of public meetings where they'll come back and bring some of the proposals that they're looking at on fixing that whole corridor. The things that's funded in that right now are the Campbell Station and the Watt Road interchanges, which are the last two interchanges in Knox County that have been done, or that haven't been done, basically. But we're hopeful that, we can come up with some creative funding or some funding to do the corridor, because we can't wait 10 years to start it. And so that's something I continue to talk to the commissioner about, and we'll continue to work on that. Obviously, many of y'all know that, and this is kind of the drumbeat I've been beating, is that our infrastructure funding stream is a depreciating revenue source because of, and people always say, oh, those EVs. And I said, no, it has nothing to do. They're negligible. But it really is the newer cars that are getting so much more miles per gallon. Our revenue has almost stayed fairly stable because we have so many more people driving on our roads, either moving to Tennessee or moving to the Eastern Corridor. And so we're putting more wear and tear on the roads, which causes the deterioration quicker. And then the price of building roads, which most of y'all know, is going up exponentially. So we've got, one of the last estimates was $38 billion in backlog of identified projects. And so last year I passed a bill to get TASER, the state study group, to do an in-depth study on alternative funding. And I spent at least a year with a national work group on alternative transportation funding. And in fact, last week, Representative Wright and I went to Burlington, Vermont, and it got to 6 below, but we didn't go outside when it was 6 below. But we had another, it was the Eastern Transportation Cooperative in the National Legislative Group put on the one-day meeting to talk about alternative funding and what other eastern regional states are doing in their state. And so what this actually, TASER is doing a panel on Thursday about some of this study that's going on, so you can go online and look at that during or after. It's sometime, well, Thursday, tomorrow. And so my hope is, we have to have the, quote, final study by the end, here in 26, because it's really in-depth. But looking at things like, what some states are doing are, some small fees on an Amazon-type delivery, an Uber-type ride, rental car, of course, new car sales. We did just actually pass this past year, the tax from tires will go into the road fund. And then there's some states that are doing pilots and are some form of mileage-based user fee, which actually people get the option of paying the average or based on their mileage driven. So there's a number of things out there that people are doing. And so, I've asked, I personally think the solution, because we need an appreciating revenue source. And I think the ultimate solution is a composite of a lot of different things instead of just dependent upon the gas tax. And you can't just keep raising that because it's going to keep getting lower per mile driven. So we're working on that. I actually, 2 weeks ago, I was in D.C. presenting on something else, and I met with one of our gubernatorial candidates and told him that we're going to have the study, but I hope with an incoming governor that is something that they will tackle, and I'll work with them to try to come up with some kind of revised formula. I don't know if y'all know, but anytime the governor gives a raise to state employees, or like Amanda's raise comes from the gas tax. Not just yours, but all TDOT employees. She's the most special one here, but no. But, while I knew all of TDOT's budget came basically from, the majority of it came from the gas tax, I didn't realize, I just never thought about all their employees' raises coming from that. And so that keeps there's more challenges and challenges. We got to think outside the box and look for different types of solutions. And so that's something that I'm going to continue to work on. I try to educate my transportation committee on a lot of these issues. There are a few members that keep wanting to bring legislation that takes small pieces of it. I think there's a possible bill coming to index the gas tax. I don't know that. I'd rather not piecemeal it and just do a big comprehensive solution. There's potentially looking at trying to do for the public, like the gas station electric chargers for EVs, putting the tax on that. A lot of states are doing, or a number of states are doing that, but that is such a negligible amount that I don't, as a single item bill, I don't really see that as something that would really help anything. The first choice lane project in Nashville, they've done the preliminary RFPs, but it will go out to the final RFP. I think there's 3 groups bidding on that, and so that goes out in January. So here in early 26, sometime we'll find out exactly what that parameters. And I always say, I don't know if anybody knows much about the express lanes, toll lanes, choice lanes. We like our name better. But it's kind of like the football coaches. They just keep getting more and more and more and more. And now the NIL players are getting more and more and more. But so the choice lane type projects are kind of that way. When they first started, it was like a 70-30 split. Usually 70 from the investor, 30% from the state, and then it kind of went 80-20. Then it kind of went to 100. Then it went to the point where there was public benefit money on top of the 100%. There was a project up in Northern Virginia that I visited that was had I think $1 billion extra in public benefit money. One in Atlanta had $4 billion on top of it, and so it's becoming very competitive bidding. So I don't think we'll get $4 billion in Tennessee, but I'll be disappointed if we don't get some public benefit money on top of the project in Nashville. And so they're kind of working out all the kinks before we see if a choice lane project is right. We've got to have an investor that thinks that the money is that they'll make their money. They're investors. And of course they fund, design, build, maintain, and operate it. And we get to save that money we save on building that road. We get to use that money elsewhere on other roads. So it's really doubling our dollars. I guess the other latest thing that has to do with transportation is the lieutenant governor appointed me to a lieutenant governor's committee on aerospace. So that's our next thing we get to deal with is spaceports, and I know nothing about it, but I did go to the meeting and learned a little bit about it. As I said, I guess we do transport people to space, but it was interesting. But I guess that's, we're going to, continue. Oh, they did send me, if you're interested, you've probably heard most of it, but some of the highlights, they've delivered 100% of program projects in the last 3 years. 76 projects awarded to construction this year with a total of $284 million. Projects in all 24 of the Region 1 counties. Awarded projects to 20 different contractors. Major project highlights include Region 1 is delivery a mix of high-value interstate work, safety upgrades, and major bridge replacements across our 24 counties. The couple of projects, the I-40 French Broad River Bridge replacement, the I-75 Loudoun County widening. So on maintenance and resilience and in-house delivery, Region 1's in-house team continue to lead emergency response and storm-related bridge repairs while maintaining 4,483 bridges and 9,181 lane miles. And from Helene, update, 48 of 49 state route interstate closures are reconnected. So I think that's most everything. It's challenging. Our transportation, meeting our needs are challenging, but I think, we've got to come up with good solutions, and I'm going to continue to work on it as chair of the transportation course. I pay more attention to my East Tennessee Region 1 roads, but anyway, I do have to kind of advocate for the roads in Middle and West a little bit. But anyway, any questions or anything?
Yeah, thank you. Senator Massey, I really appreciate all your work on transportation and other issues. You're really knowledgeable and work really hard, and great update. I was going to just ask two things. First is, one way to extend the lifespan of our highways is to reduce the wear and tear, and one way to do that is transit and rail. And I know, we always talk about highways and roads and cars, and then cars and highways and roads, and all those things. And obviously that is the primary mode of transportation for most people, but it hasn't always been that way. And other countries rely more heavily on rail for freight and for passenger. And I know that those are national level issues, but even the privatization. I mean, like we talk about the private sector's interest in choice lanes. Is there private sector interest in intercity, regional rail and or bus and that sort of thing? It's just something I think that we need to consider, because we used to be a leader in the world on those things, and now we're a leader on more
Right.
of the car infrastructure, and, maybe we can do both.
Correct. Well, I mean, we continue to do, the transit in our urban areas, but that doesn't do much for our rural areas. And, but as far as the rail, there's the, I forget the exact acronym, I knew it when I did my TV interview, but there's an initiative to expand rail, and there's some federal grant money available. So Chattanooga in partnership, but Chattanooga was really the mover of it, partnered with Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta, and got first-round grants. And they have especially one person down there that is a huge advocate for it. That's the leader of it. He calls me all the time. But they put together a coalition that really pushed it. And so they're progressing along, should meet the standards to go to the second round. I believe in the first of the year, there's another round of grants available. I've not seen, I may not know about it, but that we've had a really good champions group to really put together to try to go after that grant. I know Virginia would love to bring it down. I've got one of my husband's college friends lives up in Southern Virginia and is very interested. Would love to bring it down from Bristol to Knoxville to Chattanooga. But we need a champion or a team that puts it together to really go after that grant this next round. And until we do that, that's not going to happen. It doesn't just happen organically. So if anybody's interested, you can work on that. But I mean, I was in Europe this summer and rode the trains, so I know what you're talking about. But it's like I say, there's no solution that's a bad solution now. It's just a matter of looking at different alternatives and saying, well, maybe. I mean, it's just like the boring tunnels in Nashville. I mean, that's not going to take a ton of folks off the road, but it will take some folks off the road that will help in Nashville. And I actually went to Austin, and I do have a granddaughter there, so I had multiple purposes to go there. But I went and visited where they make the tunnels just to look at how they were done, because it helps me to see something as opposed to be told that this is how it's done. So that's just one solution, but it is a private partner coming to us saying we're willing to do this. And I said, anybody comes to me and says they want to do something for free for us, I'm open to it, because that saves us money to use it elsewhere. I didn't run a nonprofit for 25 years for nothing. So, any other questions?
Just real quickly, I also wanted to thank you for coming to the TPO meetings. We really appreciate these updates. We sent our TPO staff to all the different I-4075 Pell meetings, and we thought the TDOT and the consultants did a good job. But like everyone else, we're clamoring to see the options and everything. And I went to the one at the City of Knoxville's Public Works building, and it was really kind of apropos that as we were having that meeting, through those windows, you could see the interstate, and a portion of the time it was at a standstill during the meetings. So it really needs to be addressed, and we appreciate both TDOT and your help in Nashville on that issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, I'm originally from Nashville and lived there when they constructed 840, which is the circumferential route around the urbanized area. At the time, TDOT took a lot of heat for it because it was so far outside of the urbanized area. But now consider Nashville without 840.
Right.
When I moved here, which is in the 90s, the orange route, the red route, the blue route, or I think it was green.
Orange and blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I came to work here in Oak Ridge. And at that time, TDOT selected the orange route as the means of getting around our urbanized area. And at that time, it's kind of disturbing that they were looking forward enough to know that circumferential route needed to be built. You cannot build your way with choice lanes out of a single route. It's still east-west, and it's only east-west. it just becomes a bigger parking lot when there are traffic incidents. At the time that the orange route was selected, it was going south of Oak Ridge. At this point, there's been so much development in that area that is no longer an option due to right-of-way
Correct.
acquisition.
Correct.
So if that is going to be looked at as a circumferential alternative, you're going to have to go north of DOE. One of the things that really has negatively affected Anderson County, Clinton, and Oak Ridge has been the traffic that wants to avoid the urbanized area, and they either take Highway 58 or 95. They go through Oak Ridge, they go through Clinton. They pass 3 schools. All those trucks pass the high school, 2 high schools, and a Catholic K through 12. They also run down the main street of both communities. So it has been highly detrimental to have those semi trucks come through the middle of our communities.
Right.
The other thing is, at this point, there are 7 nuclear construction projects in Oak Ridge on the west side of town. That's where you're running all the traffic. These guys have heard this before. We had a ammunitions plant blow up not too long ago, and we had to evacuate. We've got 7 nuclear facilities under construction in addition to K-25, Y-12, and ORNL. Think of trying to evacuate that area. It's the Pellissippi, and that's it. And the Pellissippi is a parking lot. Edgemore is a parking lot. Without looking at those difficulties and those existing conditions in your analysis of I-40, you're leaving a big piece of the puzzle out. The alignment is going to continue to go up in right-of-way acquisition. It's not going to be an easy alignment because our topographic and geologic physical attributes, which we all love, but they are a deterrent to getting around or over them. But you don't have much longer. I go down the Pellissippi every day. You look at I-40, and it looks like a sidewalk of paved semis. I know I have people that work in my office, and it takes them an hour and a half to get to Farragut home. It's 14, 12 miles, something like that. You can't get in and out of Oak Ridge. If you guys are not taking the long view, which TDOT was doing with Nashville in the 1980s, they built 440, they built 840. At the time that 840 was built, it was also looked at as an economic development driver and opening up those areas to residential development, commercial development, and industrial development. 840 was not built with any federal funds. That is 100% state money that built 840 because they didn't meet warrants at the time. But once again, TDOT had the vision of what Nashville was going to become.
Absolutely.
We greatly need TDOT to have that vision with regard to Knoxville. I work for a private firm. I'm working, meeting this afternoon with people are leaving Nashville in droves. The developers are tired of it. They're tired of the ring city, their regulations. You can work on a project for 2 years and walk away with nothing. I'm meeting with a developer who has done work for years in Lebanon and Franklin and downtown Nashville, and he is coming here. He is coming here, and he's already bought property. So we really need TDOT to have the vision of where we're going to be in 40 years and not put a Band-Aid like the choice lanes on I-40.
Well,
And if I could say something, Senator Massey has been an advocate for looking at basically a bypass. You know, she's been pushing that, I know, for a long time. She is not TDOT herself, but I think she's been pushing that, and talking about that. In fact, they've taken the first steps as far as, implementing studies and doing those sort of things. So she's been on the ball with exactly what you're talking about.
Well, and basically, I was going to say that I've actually, since I've been chair of transportation, I've talked about a new bypass study because the original Orange route is obsolete. As you've said, there's just been so much development. Had they built it, I mean, it would have come back into 4075 before Loudoun County and the split, which would have been a bottleneck that now. But I have asked, and so on this new comprehensive looking at, our challenges here, I've reiterated and reiterated that not only they have to look at addressing the 18, 17 miles of 4075 combined, but they have to look at the bypass too and have that, because that will take longer. We can't totally wait on that to get some relief on 4075 because we could get that done quicker. But it needs to be in the plans. It needs to be in our plans on basically where it would go. And Amanda's heard me talk about this too. But I'm going to continue to make sure that when they come back with the final plan, that it is included in the plans. It may not be step one, but we're going to keep working on it. But yeah, I agree. I think ultimately it'd go from 81 to 75, 75 to 40, 40 to 75. So a half loop is really what we need. Anyway, I agree. I agree with you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Senator Massey.
Mayor, I had one. Oh, over here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Senator,
Councilman.
thank you, Mayor. Senator, thank you for being here. Thank you for your work on this. I think addressing traffic, like we were just hearing from everybody, is something that everyone has high on their priority list, and your help in that is greatly appreciated. I wanted to ask you just a little bit closer to where we are right now. I know there's money in the request for recurring bridge investment. Are you seeing any activity with Gay Street Bridge? Are there some discussions going on about that? I know that's a major topic that we're talking about here in Knoxville, and the mayor just had a ribbon cutting the other day to open it up for pedestrians and bicyclists. So could you just maybe take a couple minutes and talk to us about what you're seeing, what you need from us in the city to help with looking at the Gay Street Bridge, what you're seeing progress being made there? Thank you.
I don't really have any updates. I'm just kind of staying in communication with the mayor and your all's officials as far as the progress on that. And I'll try to be supportive when we come up with some proposals.
Yeah, I'll just add, it was a happy occasion just yesterday. It's not restored to the full utilization of motorized vehicles, but we did reopen the Gay Street Bridge yesterday. It's only for bicyclists and pedestrians because that's what the safety engineers said we could do. But we spent $2.7 million local dollars. And as the people at this table know, we were able to analyze and do the repairs in 18 months, which is pretty darn fast for such a complicated process. So I'm grateful for having that repair and stabilization project done. And there were a lot of my office overlooks the Gay Street Bridge, and so yesterday, beautiful sunny day, there were people walking and biking across it all day. So it's not the way it used to be, but I think a lot of people will enjoy the connection in the ways to get across the river is way more open than it was earlier in the week in the last 18 months. So we're happy to have that improvement. But yeah, we're applying for a grant or have applied for a grant for federal funds to study a full replacement, but that's going to definitely be beyond the capacity of the city alone to pay for.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Senator. On to the federal surface transportation funding reauthorization update. I'm going to turn over to Mike.
Yes, thank you. So this is a good segue from the state level to now the federal funding discussion. We actually had someone from a former TPOe employee, Ellen Zaviska, is now with Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, or AMPO, the national organization of MPOs. She came to Tech Committee and gave a presentation on this. I'm just going to kind of give a more highlight overview of what she told us about. So the federal authorization is, the current one's called IIJA, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. may have that switched back for the acronym. These federal reauthorizations go for usually a 5-year period. So this one's expiring at the end of fiscal year 26, which is September 30th next year. The funding obviously comes through the Highway Trust Fund to fund this, and it's already underway now since it expires next September. There's work being done. The House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, as well as Senate Environment and Public Works. Of course, our own Congressman Burchett serves on the House T&I Committee looking at getting this underway. So under IIJA, kind of one of the big hallmarks was the discretionary funding increases, things like SS4A. So it had like five more times discretionary funding than the previous FAST Act did. So there's some pros and cons. Obviously, the city was successful in getting a lot of that SS4A money, but it also takes staff time to put together grant proposals and wait for the call for projects and all that. So there's some talk about maybe making those discretionary programs more of a formula side, just setting that up as a direct allocation. We'll see where that goes. From the federal level, the U.S. DOT Secretary Sean Duffy, they're of course talking about these themes of reauthorization. Safety is a big one, obviously. We also hear a lot about speeding up project delivery. It takes too long to get these projects going. There's also a bit of controversial proposals floated about eliminating the mass transit funding that gets separated out from the highway side. That seems to be a no-go as far as the chairman of the House T&I committees, Sam Graves, says, that's kind of a no-go. The transit funding is still an important factor here that needs to be included, but that has been floated out there. The big issue here is the funding, and this is what following up on Senator Massey's discussion here. There's just an issue of getting enough revenue from that gas tax model. At the federal level, it was the Highway Trust Fund set up in 1956 with the interstate development. This was intended to be a true user fee. You're paying your way through the gas tax to fund these highway improvements. But those are outstripping now the revenues. The current fuel tax of 18.4 cents federal on gasoline, 24.4 on diesel, those were last changed and increased in 1993. So it's been a long time, and obviously inflation has outstripped those levels there. So in fact, the Highway Trust Fund became insolvent or bankrupt, if you want to say, since 2008, there's had to be transfers from the general fund in the amount of $275 billion to keep it solvent and move forward. And now it looks like in 2028, it will hit zero again. I have this chart, a lot of numbers here. The main thing here is the revenue side. If you look at 2025, we're at $38 billion. That's projected to decrease down to $34 billion by 2035, again, for those reasons Senator Massey talked about with fuel efficiencies, EV vehicles, other factors. And meanwhile, the outlays, inflation affecting things, it's already above the revenue in 2025 at $58 billion. That goes up to $70 billion. So we hit that zero mark in 2028 and just keeps digging a bigger hole from there. So I haven't heard a whole lot of discussion about how the funding is going to be set up for the next federal bill. That's going to have to be tackled, and whether it's another general fund infusion or talking about other models like we're mentioning, mileage-based user fees might be one way, or a mixture of different factors. But that needs to be obviously addressed at some point. We can't keep kicking that can down the road. As far as AMPO goes, of course, they're advocating for local and regional agencies, and so they're pushing these priorities, advocating for these things. I'll just quickly cover. Of course, planning is the main thing that they're talking about. We would like to see potentially increase in the planning dollars that come to the MPOs, maybe less match requirement on those. And then these two, empower regional decision and right sizing and aligning, they kind of go together in the fact of trying to better balance the fact that a lot of the federal fundings go straight to the state level, state DOTs, which is obviously important, but there is the fact that 75% of the road miles out there are local and regionally maintained roadways, but we only get about 14% of that federal money sub-allocated, our local STBG that you guys here get to pick projects for. So maybe there should be a better balance there. Of course, really the whole pie needs to get bigger of the funding that we talked about, but potentially more slices of pie and more suballocated funds to the regions. And then finally, there are the drive safety improvements through regional action. This again talks about the things like the SS4A program. Could that be a suballocated part of the highway safety improvement program? Right now, that all goes directly to state DOT. Even though we're required to set safety targets, we don't get any of our own safety funding to program with that. So could we get a suballocation? Maybe it's the SS4A type funding. And similarly, the bridge formula program is another one. There's a lot of locally maintained bridges. Gay Street Bridge is one of those. Could we get federally funded suballocated to the regions and MPOs for that? So that's basically the main highlights right now, where we're at and the time frame moving forward. As I mentioned, right now, language is being developed. I don't know the whole process that goes into the bills, but it's a lot of work that goes into that, committees and staff working on. So that will continue over the next, really ramping up over the next few months. There's some, with the midterm elections coming up next year, there's going to be a lot of emphasis on trying to get this passed potentially before that. And of course, IIJ expires September 30th. So that's what I know. Again, it's kind of secondhand information, a lot of this. Just wanted to keep you up to date, and we'll continue to give you guys updates as this moves forward. And maybe Doug wants to follow.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. And as Mike mentioned, Congressman Burchett is one of the key members on that committee. With our funding, since a lot of it's federal funding, we have to kind of walk that thin line between lobbying and informing. But I know we'll keep you up to date, but y'all may hear some stuff before we do. So please feel free to share it back to us, and then we can pass it out to the broader group. But yeah, I think we'll know a little bit more in the early 26th when we start seeing actual proposals floated out there, and we can keep y'all up to date on what we're hearing.
Yeah, I just, I know you probably said this, but if this is adopted, is it for 1 year? Is it a 3 year? How many years? Or is it to be determined?
It's typically a 5-year
5-year.
Authorization of funding. That's what it has been in the past. There have been times where it expired without being a full reauthorization, in which case they'll do a continuing resolution, to keep
I've heard about
funding
those.
going. So we'll see if that happens this time, and our TDOT folks may have more ear to the ground and what's going on. But
no, we're about in the same position as you are right now.
Thanks, Mike. Any other questions or comments? Okay, thank you. Up next, annual listing of obligated projects for FY25. Take it away, Craig.
Yep, this is actually also kind of transitioning from the discussions that we've just had. This is where we look back at these federal funds to what has happened in the last fiscal year versus projects that are proceeding forward, whether that's right-of-way funding that's been obligated to a project, construction funding that's going out. So kind of seeing where the rubber hits the road out of all of this process. And this is for fiscal 25, of course. It just wrapped up at the end of September. And looking back here, we kind of see this chart. This is a little bit of kind of the last trailing 10 years of history. The top blue line that you see there is what is programmed. So that is what's planned in the given fiscal year. And this is the TIP that governs that. And then the green line on the bottom is funding that has went out to projects essentially, or been authorized for projects. So essentially the check writing process, if you want to look at it that way. Interestingly, for most years, that planned dollar exceeds what actually happens in obligation. If you look at the previous 2 years, 23 and 24, we actually obligated more than was planned in that given year. And that relates to the funding swap that we did I guess a year and a half ago now with TDOT on obligating some local STBG funds to some larger state projects, as well as sometimes just when you have some big ticket items that go out that may have been technically planned in a previous fiscal year, but obligate in a subsequent year. That's kind of what you see there. This year, we came back more to the traditional more typical year where the obligations undershot what was planned by just a little bit. And this year that was, we had 162 million programmed to 40 projects and groupings, and then $133.4 million kind of went out the door to 50 projects and groupings. If we look at that, another way to kind of look at it is by the programming authority. Essentially, TDOT, in a typical year, has the lion's share of the obligations just by nature of the scale of the projects that TDOT has. While they may have fewer in number, they're almost always going to be greater in dollar figures, just again, speaking to that, just relative scale. Their programming obligations were about $85 million, or just under 64% of the program. TPOe, those local dollars, be they to roadway projects, trail projects, or to FTA, are represented there, just under 19 million from the federal highway side and a 6.6 million from FTA. FTA direct funding that is going directly, in this case, this is CAP programming, $23 million in fiscal '25, which is about 17.3%. And again, that total of $133.4 million. Another way to look at it is by funding source. The more typical larger scale, I need to back up because my notes are not here in front of me. The NHPP program is usually the largest program. Often, again, speaking to that TDOT, they've got $55.3 million that went out the door on that project. When you next go down, those FTA funds to CAT were a large one this year, and state STBG, again, working towards that paying back of state STBG for locally programmed projects, are $21.4 million, or 16.1% of the program. Obligations by project type. Again, those large high-dollar items you show up on our interstate and our state road programs, 40% to the interstate projects, 19.2% or $25.5 million there to state route projects, and then subsequently down, again, with the transit dollars being heavily represented this year. I believe CAT was obligating multiple years of funding this year, so that one looks relatively larger than what it does in some years as they were catching up with some previous year funds. The TPOe managed funds, we have missed a slide, I want to say. There's a slide missing. I have a slide that has it by kind of the project type as well, but for some reason that one isn't showing up there. Kind of breaking it down another way. But on TPOe managed funds, and these are the ones that, again, are programmed and obligated through the authority of this group, LSTBG obligations, programmed $33 million, and 15.3 was obligated for about 46% of that programming. LSTBG, the TA program, 4.9% programmed and 1.2 million obligated, 24%. Carbon reduction programming, we did get some significant obligations on that program this year, just over 1 million program, but in excess of $2.2 million were obligated, which is 218% of that program. I want to speak to a couple of the larger scale projects.
Craig, can
Yes.
you just remind us what the CRP projects were? Or are?
I can get to that with some regularity.
I
if you
mean,
bear
just
with
a
me for a
broad
moment.
brushstrokes, I mean,
Yeah.
if you have it.
Yeah, the carbon reduction program largely overlaps with the CMAQ program, so a lot of times that will be eligible. It oftentimes, and I took a quick look there, one of the Oak Ridge, their ITS project that was going on over there had carbon reduction program obligations this year. Sometimes that also has some eligibility. We might fill some gaps on, say, a trail project because it's also eligible for those types of programs. So generally overlaps with the CMAQ program, though. So. The larger scale obligations projects that happened this year, $36.3 million to the I-75 interchange at Emory Road project. Again, in excess of $20 million to CAT operating and capital expenditures. $20 million to the NHS Preservation and Operation Grouping, which is a bucket that TDOT uses for repairs to that system and projects within that NHS system. Similarly, they have a STB Preservation and Operations Grouping, also for surface transportation improvements. Pleasant Ridge Road widening project was a significant project for City of Knoxville. Additional funding obligations to the Alcoa Highway project from Woodson to Cherokee near the airport. And that's kind of the significant projects that were obligated in fiscal 2025. Real quick snapshot of where we are with the programs that are managed by the TPO, STBG program. This is kind of year in, what's happening within the programming for the year and what rolls forward to the subsequent year for programming. If we look at the revenues between what rolled forward from previous years as well as the allocation for this year, we have about $80 million in revenue. $31.8 million programmed. So kind of do the simple math there, and we end up with $48 million rolling forward to fiscal '26. In the current TIP, $36.6 million of that is programmed for this year, although we will be transitioning to new programming planning with the new TIP when that becomes active after the first of the year. STBG, the TA program, similarly, revenues of about $6.3 million between rollover and the allocation for the area for this year. Committed to projects is $3.9 million, and again, rolling forward 2.4, of which all of that is programmed in fiscal '26. That carbon reduction program, it's a very similar size program to the TAP program, $6.2 million in revenue, only $1 million programmed at this given time, and $5.2 million rolling forward to '25 with a relatively small amount programmed there. So we do have some flexibility within that program to bring additional projects in. This project report, as well as the previous ones going back at least 10 years, are on the TIP page within the MPO's website, and we will be looking forward to the new TIP approval sometime in Q1 of calendar year '26. And we certainly are in a pretty good position with a conservative position on our contingency reserve program to be able to continue to accommodate cost overruns with projects. Again, speaking to that inflationary environment with cost increases. And I will pause if there are any questions. This does not require an action. It is for your information.
Seeing no questions, thank you, Greg. On to the interactive crash map and bicycle pedestrian crash infographic.
All right, morning. So for the past few months, Emily and I have been working to make crash data a little bit more accessible to the general public. And so coming out of that, we have two products to share with you today. The first is an interactive crash map, and then the second is an infographic that just covers pedestrian and cyclist-only crashes. So for the first one, I'll hand it off to Emily to introduce herself and talk about the crash map.
Good morning. I'm Emily Jackson. I'm a research assistant on TPO staff. Like Jonah said, I'm going to be showing you our interactive crash map we built. The purpose of this tool is to make crash data in our region more accessible. I don't know if any of you are familiar with AASHTOware. It's a crash explorer tool. I think that's provided through TDOT. It requires a login and provided by TDOT also. So it's not available to everyone. So we built this tool sort of to help get around that. We scrubbed some of the sensitive information and yeah. So anyone can access it now at this point. Sorry. Okay, is this the web? Yeah, okay, awesome, thank you. I'm gonna make the text a little bigger. Hopefully you can read this. Okay, so this center panel here is a map. Each point represents a crash that happened in the TPO planning area. This boundary here is the TPO planning area. As you can see in the legend on the side, hopefully you can read this. Maybe I'll make this a little bigger. The crashes are color-coded by severity, injury severity. And on the left, or on the right side, this is like a summary statistics panel. So this item right here is a counter, so it counts how many crashes are visible in the map extent. This pie chart breaks down the crash distribution by severity. And this column chart here reports the the top 4 roads where crashes occurred. Up here in this ribbon, let me zoom back in so you can read it. This is a filter that lets you select by crash severity, so you can pull out maybe just fatal and serious injury crashes. This filter here, manner of first collision, lets you select types of crashes you're interested in, maybe head-on or for example. Mode of transportation, you can pull out bike ped crashes or just motor vehicle. This date filter lets you select a time range you're interested in. We have some predefined ones such as past year, past 5 years. It goes all the way back to January 2015. Or you can go to this sort of custom date range and select custom dates that you're interested in. And finally, this geography filter will let you select a place you're interested in, for example, a city or a county. So, just for fun or not fun, we can select an example. Maybe you're interested in bike ped crashes in Farragut since in the past 5 years, and it will load all of those. And you can turn on place boundaries too, so you can sort of see the boundaries where it happened. You can see the distribution of injuries here. They were all serious injury, no fatalities. Two of them happened on Kingston Pike, one on Concord Road, I-40, and so on. So, and the counter updates as well. So all of these summary statistics are dynamic. So they're sensitive to your filters and to your zoom extent. So that's kind of how this thing works. So thanks for listening. We're going to take questions at the end, I think, if you have any questions. So I'm going to hand it to Jonah to talk about bike ped crashes.
Yeah, so as Emily was saying, this interactive map covers all crashes, actually as far back as AASHTO has data for, which is, I think, 2015. The second sort of product that we have coming out of this is an infographic that talks just about pedestrian and cyclist crashes. If you look in your agenda packet, that infographic is in the back if you want to follow along there. Basically, we did a 5-year study period from the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2024, just in the Knoxville TPOe region and just looking at pedestrian and cyclist crashes. And the reason we did this is we just wanted to, sort of put that information out there just to keep eyes on it and to make sure people know that this is an ongoing issue and something that we're working towards addressing. This map here, this shows all of those crashes in that 5-year study period. It's slightly different color coding compared to the interactive crash map. But as you can see here, the pink dots are fatal injuries, red are serious, orange are minor, yellow are possible injuries, and then green are property damage only. Over this 5-year period, there were 796 total bike ped crashes. 73%, the vast majority were pedestrian, and the remaining 27% were cyclist. 79 of these crashes resulted in a death. You can see here on the map up there that those are all those fatal crashes there.
You said this is from how many years?
This is a 5-year period.
5 year.
It's the beginning of 2020 to the end of 2024, so the previous calendar year. 94% of fatalities were pedestrian and 6% were cyclists. Looking at this data, we wanted to identify some high-risk corridors, and we found that only 5 streets accounted for 22% of crashes and 28% of fatalities. Those were Broadway, Magnolia Avenue, Kingston Pike, Chapman Highway, and Broadway Avenue down in Blount County.
One thing those routes all have in common, they're all state routes, is that correct?
That's exactly what I was about to talk about, is all of these roads are classified as urban principal arterials. These are high-volume roads intended to carry most trips in and out of an urban area. What we found is that these roads only account for 4% of total roadway miles, but over a third of crashes and nearly half of fatalities occur on these roads. This is likely a result of the high volume and also the high speeds that these roads support. Urban principal arterials are usually under state control, which that can add sort of a challenging layer to addressing biped safety. But that process is already well underway for a couple of the roads that I just mentioned. Magnolia Avenue and Chapman both have safety projects in the works and are represented in the recently adopted TIP. Here's a comparison of municipalities within the TPO region, as well as the state and the TPO region as a whole at the top there. Nothing is really particularly out of place here. Knoxville's crash rate is the worst, and that's to be expected just because it has the highest population, highest concentration of both traffic and bicyclists and pedestrians. Keep in mind that the Tennessee rate at the top there is taking the entire state into account, so that's not just urbanized areas, that's also the rural areas. This is sort of weighted by population, so this is per 10,000 residents. If you want a city-to-city comparison, Nashville had a rate of roughly 6.3 biped crashes per 10,000 residents during the same period. Chattanooga was 6.0, and then Memphis was the worst at 7.1. So we're doing better than our peer cities here in Tennessee. I wasn't able to find reliable data for similar sized cities in other states, but at least in the state of Tennessee, we're doing okay compared to these other cities. Crashes resulting in injury or death. As you can probably imagine, pedestrians are most at risk in a crash. 92% of pedestrian crashes resulted in injury or death. 4 out of 5 crashes involving a cyclist resulted in injury or death. And you can compare those figures to less than a quarter of motor vehicle only crashes. Something to note here with our data is that, again, this is all coming from AASHTO-WARE, which is fed with police reports. With biped crashes especially, those reports can often be incomplete. Oftentimes, crashes just aren't reported, especially non-fatal, non-injury crashes. If the reports were more representative, you could expect to see a higher number of crashes, but maybe a little bit lower rate of injury or death, but still far above that of motor vehicle only crashes. Quick opportunity for me to get on my soapbox here and talk about what we can do to address this. First is adhere to the 3-foot law, also called the Jeff Roth law, which mandates maintaining no less than 3 feet of clearance when passing a cyclist. It's just safest for everybody involved. Second is to build space for cyclists and pedestrians. That includes sidewalks, bike lanes, and greenways. Separate spaces for cyclists and pedestrians, it reduces the conflict points and is generally the safest sort of intervention that you can make for bikes and pedestrians. Gay Street Bridge is a great example of that. I know myself and many other people in Knoxville are very happy to have that open and open only to cyclists and pedestrians. The third thing is to keep speed safe. Speed is the biggest factor in risk of injury or death in a crash, and even small increases in speed can result in very large increases in risk. If you look at the very last page of the infographic there, you can see a graphic that sort of illustrates just how much speed can impact the outcome of a crash. Finally, I guess I forgot to mention the speed again is a big part of why urban arterials are such high-risk corridors, because they do support very high speeds in terms of vehicle traffic. And then finally, implement traffic calming measures. This can include raised crosswalks, curb extensions, and street trees. People will drive pretty much as fast as the road tells them to, not necessarily as fast as the speed limit sign tells them. And there are things that we can do to sort of make interventions on those roads and sort of subtly cue to the driver that they should be driving slower than they are. And so raised crosswalks, curb extensions, street trees, those are all examples of traffic calming measures that we can take. So both of these products, the interactive crash map and the infographic, they're on the TPO website. If you go to data monitoring, there's a tab there that says traffic crashes in the Knoxville region. You can click on that and there will be a link both to the interactive crash map and to the infographic. But if you have any questions or comments, we'll be happy to take them.
Sure, yeah. Well, Jonah and Emily, thank you. It's Emily and Jonah, right? Okay, your name tags still say Mike and Craig, but I'm pretty sure you're Jonah and Emily. This is a really useful tool. I've seen some less interactive versions of this, for the city, for our Vision Zero and so forth. But this regional approach and the that level of interaction is the most advanced I've ever seen, and I think. I know our engineering teams are going to get some training on that, because it seems like we could use this for, we already have some Safe Streets for All projects, as you mentioned, on Magnolia and Chapman, and also Broadway Woodland Avenue. But in the meantime, unfortunately, those projects take way too long to actually enact, years. Even when you have the money, it just takes a long time to do the right of way and so forth. But in the meantime, we do have enforcement efforts. So I saw something in here. Is there a way to say the time of day, and also which crashes? It seems like speed is a big issue, obviously, but also impaired driving. Is there a way to gauge that? Or discern that from your...
Yeah, those are statistics that we can definitely pull out for you. I know that lighting is definitely a big issue. I don't remember the exact percentage, but dark lighting is...
like at the sunset is when there's a lot of crashes.
Yeah,
right?
Sunset and dark conditions tend to be obviously highest risk. And I don't remember what the impaired driving rate was, but it was also
we
substantial.
also have an issue with impaired pedestrians, crossing Chapman Highway in particular, unfortunately.
Right.
So that's not I don't know if you can track that, but
we tried to stay away from putting impairment in the crash data explorer, because it's a legal matter, and if those things are unresolved, you don't want.
Right.
It kind of gets messy with that.
I'm also sort of the opinion that, obviously those are sort of compounding factors, but at the end of the day, you can probably trace it back to a more sort of structural deficiency in where that crash occurred. Even if a pedestrian is impaired, there are probably interventions that can be made there to
right.
to
If
make
their
it safer.
speed were lower and
Exactly.
so forth, they might survive it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Great work. I think this is a really
absolutely.
amazing tool.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you. Now we have an update from our TDOT and Federal Highway Administration partners.
I don't know if we'll ever see another federal highway update again, but I don't have anything for them, but we have not heard about any type of change from the federal highway staff as opposed, or when it comes to their traveling to these meetings. So we'll do our best to represent, but at the moment, nothing from federal highway. A couple things that I wanted to add was the multimodal access grant, TAP grants, and improved capital grants will be announced in about 2 weeks. This is based on the last call. One thing that I think is important to mention is that when we go and do our next round of calls, we're going to combine all of these potentially into one big call and utilize the funding source after we determine which projects are the selected projects. So as opposed to what we're doing now with 3 individual calls, we're going to do one big call utilizing those 3 funding sources. So it's just for informational purposes at this point. It was mentioned earlier regarding the West Knoxville Pell. both from Senator Massey and from Mike a little bit, and Doug, with the success that we had. We had a very good turnout from those 4 public meetings that we conducted last month, with over 1,000 survey responses as well. So there's been a lot of interest, as you could probably imagine, for these. The next steps for that is to compile those comments, bring those back to the TPO and other public meeting, develop the screened alternatives, and as well as the purpose and need. So those will all be coming to you, I would say, by the spring of next year. So those are really my updates for this point. Troy, do you have anything?
Do you want to talk about long-range plan?
Oh, with the long-range transportation plan, we are, our mini update, which is an update that updated our latest planning assumptions to get us within our 20-year window required by federal law, is out for public comment. Today is actually the last day for the public comment. But next year, I've mentioned this a couple times at these meetings, but we will be embarking into a much larger plan update next year that will really bring the engagement to a point that I don't think we've ever had at this level of a plan update. So more will come with that. We also, taking into account what we've heard today regarding safety and some of the other traffic issues, that will be part of it. We look to kind of focus these in a regional basis as opposed to more of a statewide thing, but like I said, more updates will come in future meetings. That's it, sir.
I only had one update. The planning grants that were applied for, those have been scored. We should hear a announcement on that here within the coming week or so, maybe 2 this month, so we can get those projects up and running by January. That's all I had.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Doug. I'll turn it over to you for other business, please.
Yes, our next technical committee is January 13th, and then the next executive board is January 28th. As staff, we think right now we don't have a ton of items, so there's a good chance we might cancel January, but we're on a hold on that until, see if anything bubbles up here in the next week or 2. And then the last thing, this will be Councilman Andrew Roberto's last meeting, so I really wanted to take time to thank him for his valuable input into our process. I know transportation issues are a passion of his, and we really appreciate all the contributions you've made to the TPO. I know you're going to stay in touch also, I think, so.
I'll stay in touch. I just want to thank everyone who serves on the committee for all your hard work and all your input, and I want to thank Dallas for always keeping me in line, making sure I show up to meetings and knowing when things are, and just the staff in general. You all have always been very open to having meetings and discussing kind of long-term, even short-term plans. So just want to appreciate you all, and thank you for the opportunity to serve with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We appreciate you. Now is the section of the meeting where members of the public may address the executive committee with a 5-minute time limit for each person. Would anyone like to take advantage of that opportunity? Seeing none?
Wait, good morning. Hang on.
Oh, there is a Zoom person.
Hi, I'm not a member of the public, but I am with the Federal Highway Administration. I just wanted to take a minute to introduce myself. My name is Kara Greathouse. I'm working out of the West Virginia Division office, but we're assisting the Tennessee Division with their planning activities. I'm specifically helping out in regions 1 and 2, so Knoxville is one of my MPOs to oversee. I just wanted to say, hey, introduce myself. I know you're over your meeting time, but if you have any questions or need anything, please feel free to reach out. I'll put my email address in the chat.
All right, great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, that concludes our business for this meeting. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Sure.
A second? Without objection, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays.